Ah, the Oregon Trail. These games have been a mainstay of computer labs in schools around the United States for the past 40 years, and their impact really can't be overstated. I mean, for millions of people who either weren't allowed or couldn't afford to play Sonic or Mario at home, this little edutainment title was their introduction to the gaming medium, and it always felt like a special little treat since you were playing a game during school hours. While there have been a number of updates, ports, and official sequels since the series' inception, they all share the same premise and basic elements. You lead a party of settlers headed westward along the eponymous Oregon Trail. Along the way, you'll find yourself encountering famous landmarks, ripping off the local yokels, and playing your part to help enact manifest destiny by overhunting the buffalo. However, beneath this kid-friendly premise lies a deceptively difficult experience. Seeing their attempts to provide students with an accurate depiction of all the hardships settlers encountered during their journey, the developers ended up creating a brutally challenging title that seems determined to screw the player over with RNG at every turn. Now, back when I was a precocious child, I did eventually get to a point where I was able to successfully beat the game on a somewhat regular basis, but that was like 20 years ago. So now that I'm a burnout, cynical adult, am I still able to complete the voyage? Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Welcome to the Oregon Trail.
Our journey begins in Independence, Missouri, as I set about gathering our intrepid band of travelers. There was stern old Abraham, his wife Esther, their son Jeb, and Esther's sister, the lovely, and not to mention, single Miss Chastity. With my party in place, it was then time to head to the store to purchase some supplies, although the fact that I'm a simple farmer and everybody else is too much of a mooch to chip in means we're dealing with a limited budget. With my party in place and our wagon stocked, it was finally time for us to set on the trail on April 1st, 1840, and just like every child who ever plays this game, it takes me very little time to switch to a more strenuous pace. This is quickly offset when we're hit by heavy fog, which puts us a day behind schedule, but we still managed to arrive at the Kansas City River crossing by April 7th, where we pay the ferry operator to take us across. Once we arrive safely on the other side of the river, I organize a hunting party so I can impress Chastity with my sharpshooting skills. However, this is immediately counteracted when I end up leading us down the wrong trail and cost us another day. Abraham also comes down with a case of the measles, and despite the party's decision to rest to give some time to recover, he ends up succumbing to the illness. Losing their patriarch seemed to take a toll on the family, and it seemed like God themselves did not approve of our journey, as we were faced with one setback after another. Yet our persistence paid off, and a month to the day after we first began our journey, we finally arrive at the Big Blue River crossing, where we managed to safely float our wagon across. Immediately after this, we also managed to forage some delicious wild fruits, so it looks like our luck might finally be turning around. Of course, this wasn't the case at all though, as we're hit with quite frankly an incessant amount of fog, and all this time we were forced to sit around and twiddle our thumbs began to add up as our food started to spoil. We'd eventually reach Fort Kearny on May 16th, and while there, we'd hit up the local store to buy some spare parts for the wagon and trade some of our clothing for a few extra bucks. The decision to get some extra parts for the wagon proved to be a prescient one, as one of our axles would soon break, although we were able to fix it without having to replace it. However, the situation soon became quite perilous on May 29th, when my baby Chastity comes down with typhoid fever, and then when we were resting, that old crone Esther was hit with a bad case of cholera, which would prove to be fatal. Thankfully, Chastity managed to recover, and the three of us who were left arrived at Chimney Rock on June 11th, which was way behind schedule. The next stretch following Chimney Rock is extremely unforgiving. All of the water we come across is tainted, and Chastity would end up wandering away from the party, although we thankfully managed to track her down before too long. Eventually, we make our way to Fort Laramie, and with our food supply getting a little low, it seems like a good idea to stock up while we can. Things would take a dire turn though on June 25th, as Jeb would be afflicted with dysentery. After resting for a few days, I finally decided to slow back down to a steady pace, with the hopes that traveling at a more leisurely speed will prove to be less taxing on the party, which was not looking too hot. The first week of July would prove to be a particularly challenging one, as we seemingly entered a barren wasteland incapable of supporting any life, and I was forced to pick the pace back up just to escape this brutal hellscape. Jeb seemed to turn a corner on July 7th, although he would start showing symptoms of cholera the very next day, and God seemed to know that me and Chastity were living in sin, as she was once again afflicted with typhoid fever. While I was tempted to give them a little time for some R&R, we were close to Independence Rock, so I decided to keep pushing forward. The two would manage to hold out until Independence Rock, but Jeb would part from his mortal coil within a week of our arrival, and Chastity would join him in the afterlife just 3 days later on July 20th. My original party of 5 had been cut down to a lonely one, and although there was part of me that just wanted to call it quits and wait for the sweet release of death to free me from this ordeal, I gathered my resolve and kept pushing forward to honor the memories of those lost along the way. However, this would ultimately prove to be a futile effort. A little more than a month after losing Chastity, I had taken a ferry across the Green River crossing where I came down with a sudden fever, and 1 week later my name would be added to the list of those who had perished along the Oregon Trail. Now, during my time revisiting this classic, I've realized a few things. One is that little 8-year-old Dusty might have been smarter than its current day incarnation, and the second is that great game design is truly timeless. The graphics might be terribly outdated, the voice acting was clearly handled by whoever the developers could round up, and the gameplay isn't exactly what most people would describe as immersive. Yet despite all that working against it, there's still a certain magic at the heart of the Oregon Trail that manages to grab hold of you and doesn't let go until you've either completed your voyage or everybody in the party dies in the attempt. What is up, everybody? Dusty here. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Now if you didn't, I'll be honest, I have no idea why I'd still be hanging around at this point. But if you did enjoy it, then make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel to be kept up to date with all my latest content. And as always, thanks for watching.